With loud chatter of civil war in the air as the Democrat Party and the treasonous bureaucracy they created within our intelligence agencies continue their very real coup attempt against President Donald Trump, while attempting to completely negate the vote of the American people, which would fully transform America into a banana republic, we probably shouldn't be the least bit surprised that the U.S. Marines have just put out this order: manpower guidance for activation and deactivation of reserve component Marines ordered to active duty ISO defense support of civil authorities, signed October 3rd. Found on the official website of the United States Marines, this announcement was put out the same day the Southern Poverty Law Center put out a story warning that militia movement and rhetoric have been elevated all across America following a recent President Trump tweet, and the day after an October 2nd story over at NC Renegade titled "Militias Activating All Across the Country. Are We Approaching Civil War?" The key section of the Marine Corps admins reads, quote, "Requests for federal assistance will come with little warning. As required, the Marine Corps must rapidly mobilize RC units and personnel, IAW, this meridmin in order to respond to threats in the homeland." Now, what exactly does that mean? Might it suggest that should civil war break out in the United States, it'll be answered by America's own armed forces? Though reserve units have previously been deployed in the U.S. numerous times and for a number of different reasons, having them deployed to defend civil authorities is a totally different beast and hints of something serious ahead. And with all of this coming at a time when Michigan Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib recently told her constituents that House Democrats were attempting to figure out how to arrest Trump officials who resist subpoenas during the impeachment process, as the Daily Caller had reported, promising to, quote, "take care of them," what the Democrats are calling impeachment is clearly a last-gasp globalist attempt to regain control of America, with Democratic presidential candidates looking so bad that evil Hillary is likely preparing to run again. And with Antifa terrorists arming up to prepare to defend the leftist LGBT agenda while calling for black bloc protests at the recent President Trump rally in Minneapolis, Minnesota on October the 10th, the official Antifa event poster actually claimed America is canceled, though conservatives preparing to defend their families against whatever kind of leftist terror that is unleashed upon America will never allow Antifa's wishes to come to pass. Yet, the fact that there are more guns in America than people, with our nation of 328 million owning 393 million guns, suggests that if another civil war does begin in America, it'll be downright ugly. So, while we continue to pray that cooler heads emerge in America and the masses soon find out the truth about what they've been lied to about by the mainstream media and the Democrat Party for a very long time now, let's also take a look within the rest of this report at more signs America is approaching a national nightmare in 2020. According to Professor Paul Bryans, the communists want to take over the whole world. Now, while to most Americans the thought of another civil war in America in the current day we live in might sound impossible, as Professor Bryans points out in the first paragraph of his article, quote, "Let us begin by acknowledging that Marxists indeed advocated that all the world should become communist, but not by hostile takeover. Rather, they advocated a series of national revolutions around the globe, which would allow the victorious workers ultimately to join together as one, abolishing the very idea of nationhood. Sounding similar to what we've been watching as leftists push for the abolishment or canceling of America, in Antifa's words, Democrat politicians have been ceding America's sovereignty and national borders over to globalism for many years now. As an October story over at the Powdered Wig Society reports, according to former CIA agent Kevin Shipp, what we've been witnessing from Democrats in Congress and the operatives that they installed within President Trump's government has been nothing less than treasonous, with their attempts to cancel America and overthrow the results of the 2016 U.S. elections. Nothing less than a seditious conspiracy to take down America. From the Powdered Wig Society story, quote, ex-CIA agent Kevin Shipp shares his opinion on why the Democrat Party is employing its last hope, impeachment, to prevent President Trump from being reelected and putting many of them in prison for decades to come. Shipp believes that many deep state operatives are guilty of treason and may very well pay the ultimate price, execution, for their crime against we the people. I believe there are at least two players who could potentially be indicted for treason: Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton, both of whom gave aid and comfort to the enemy, Iran, and a variety of terrorist groups. The others appear to be guilty of at least seditious conspiracy, conspiring to overthrow a duly elected president, therefore the government of the United States, for which the penalty is up to 20 years in prison per charge, and I believe most can be charged with many counts. End quote. He continues, if two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both. And while The Guardian recently reported that according to Steve Bannon, the so-called deep state conspiracy is for nutcases, Bannon did confirm that we're witnessing a coup in progress, though as he says, there's nothing deep about it. It's right in your face. And yes, with both the New World Order and globalism also right in our faces now, despite being called tinfoil hat conspiracy, as a story over at Armageddon News that Steve Quayle linked to on his website Saturday reports, the elite have made no secret that they wish to destroy American hegemony at all costs. America will likely be exposed to an attack so fierce that nothing will remain to rebuild. From that article, quote, those that are aware of the machinations unfolding in America today see a potentially deadly situation beginning to unfold. The talk of detention camps and foreign soldiers being prepositioned, the Stalinist purge of many top-ranking military officers, and arming of government agencies to insane levels, the slow deterioration of our industrial capability and ability of families to feed themselves, the erosion of civil liberties and government attacks on patriotic Americans, the massive spy network established to contain and control the population. For those who think that a financial collapse causing the loss of their savings and livelihood are the worst that could happen, they might want to consider this possibility. It has been said before that the goal of an economic collapse would be to not only take down America to a third world level, but even lower, so Americans would have no chance to rebuild and cause the globalists any serious problems in the future. Even with a collapse, much of our infrastructure and knowledge and raw materials would still be available to rebuild. The goal of Agenda 21 is to return large portions of the land to wilderness and eliminate the human element in these places. When you start to look at the things that some want to have happen here, a frightening picture begins to form. Destroy economy and people's wealth. Destroy infrastructure and return land to wilderness. Destroy people's ability to rebuild. Destroy population to return to sustainable global levels. The only things under human control that could do all of these things is a global pandemic of biblical proportions or a major world war. Either or both could be in the works at this time. End quote. And with communism needing internal conflict, whether revolution or civil war, to take over nations, while the far left pushes heavily for socialism in America, and socialism nearly always leads to communism and all that comes with it, including forced obedience to government, famine and starvation. We should be very careful about what's going down in America, with Democrats seemingly pushing for civil war in America so that they can unleash their shock troops upon our nation. And with the left actually petrified that if President Trump loses the 2020 election, he won't leave office, as the Daily Beast reported in a May article titled, "Here's a Preview of America's 2020 Nightmare if Trump Loses." While many on the left, including Hillary Clinton, still claim that President Trump is an illegitimate president, the fireworks that could be set off in America over the next 14 months to 5 years might be unprecedented. With Democrats and leftists completely convinced that President Trump sold out America to Russia and Vladimir Putin, fully buying into the mainstream media's lies over the past 3 years, and dead set in their beliefs that President Trump is a treasonous traitor, despite the fact that the mainstream media has been completely exposed as the liars they are, as Susan Duclos had reported in September's All News Pipeline story. The fact that the U.S. Marines have been put on notice and that the reserves may be needed at any time to support civil authorities at a time when America is approaching a boiling point is deeply concerning. So we'll leave these closing remarks to former CIA agent Kevin Shipp from this story at the Powdered Wig Society. Quote, "Yes, this is a coup. This is the most shocking violation of the Constitution and criminal activity in the history, not just of America, but of a Western government. Much of this rises to the level of treason. People need to understand how shocking this is. It was a clear conspiracy. There will be arrests and indictments without question. This was a coup. It was a conspiracy. It was criminal activity. These people need to be indicted, charged, and need to be put in prison. And if they're not, then our Constitution is nothing more than a sham. This was a coup against a duly elected president, and people need to understand how serious this is. We have a not-so-covert civil war going on right now that has been brewing over 60 years. We have the dark left and the DNC fully involved with all their congressmen and senators. there is a Marxist movement within the DNC that is in control right now. You can match up the progressive goals with Marxist documents, and you can see that they are one and the same. They have to change and eliminate the Constitution. They want to change the First Amendment and the Second Amendment first of all. Second of all, they despise and are targeting Christianity because Christianity underlines the Constitution and is mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. That's their second target they have to destroy. Their third target is the founding principles of America. That's our culture. They have to destroy those three things if they're going to overturn our Constitution and turn this into a globalist, Marxist government. That is not an understatement. It's not the same party of JFK. It's now a Marxist party and an umbrella for every victim, twisted and perverted group that has nowhere else to go. This is a mortal blow to the Democrat Party when these things come out." End quote. Now, Shipp warns us, however, that these Marxists will not go down without a fight. Literally, quote, "The danger for we the people is the dark left and dark left violence. As these indictments begin to come out, and as the players are called out, the violence on what I call the dark left, the violence is going to increase to the point where it's going to be very, very bad. There are going to be beatings and probably shootings and shooting at police. There's going to be a lot of violence coming from the left in the next year or two. This is one of the reasons you need to exercise your Second Amendment rights, because of what the left is going to do with these findings and what is going to be the death knell for the Democrat Party and the death knell for taking over our Constitution and culture. They will exponentially bring up their violence, and Americans need to arm themselves and protect themselves against that. Now, at the same time, the lunatic, lawless left, we know, is out of control. The corporate-run media has become a CIA propaganda front that ignores reality while fabricating fake stories to destroy America. The tech giants despise free speech for conservatives while demanding equality for transgenders. And left-wing governors and mayors are openly advocating Antifa-style lawlessness and violence in America, as long as that violence is directed at conservatives and Trump supporters. By the way, do you remember all the hype to push net neutrality? It was supposed to protect dissenting voices and diverse views on the net. The tech giants pushed it aggressively, and the moment Trump got elected, those same evil tech companies like Google and Facebook then systematically silenced all conservative voices. The entire net neutrality push was a con job. They never believed in neutrality, only tyranny. Just recently, lunatic left-wing mobs violently attacked Trump supporters who were leaving the Trump rally in Minneapolis. According to Breitbart, left-wing rioters attacked supporters of President Donald Trump leaving a rally in Minneapolis, Minnesota on Thursday evening, assaulting them in groups, setting fire to pro-Trump hats, and attacking the police. Local Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporter Liz Sawyer noted there were several hundred rioters and that some were singling out Trump supporters and surrounding them in groups before attacking them. Some also attacked police. It's time to stop the violence, the lunacy, and the insurrection. PJ Media's David Solway has written an outstanding article that makes the case via pjmedia.com. Quote, "Any decent and impartial observer can see that leftist and corporate America has come to resemble a cloacal bog of lies, corruption, slander, censorship, entitlements, and violence, a veritable swamp, as it's been aptly called. What commentator Diana Sitek, writing in American Thinker, calls the entitlement to depravity embedded in the left's social justice dogma is both massive and unrelenting. The media, the academy, the entertainment industry, big tech, the Democrat Party, and the deep state are profoundly engaged in a networked alliance to overturn the results of a lawful election and subvert a legitimate and effective presidency. President Trump has vowed to drain the swamp, but it's moot whether a single individual, regardless the power of high office, with little in the way of institutional support and despite his strength of character and resolve, can thwart what is nothing less than an ongoing political putsch. The attempt to impeach the president on no reasonable or substantial grounds is merely another frantic yet tenacious effort by the coup-obsessed left to unravel the fabric of a constitutional republic. This is plainly the purpose behind the Democrats' infamous Green New Deal, inspired by the UN's Agenda 21 and 2030, which under the guise of sustainable development lay out a plan for the punitive regulation of reliable energy sources, the elimination of private property, redistribution of personal wealth, restriction of due process, and of course, the diminishment of American dynamism and prestige. It is a program that perfectly encapsulates the overarching agenda of the political left, namely, a protracted war on the free enterprise system and the emasculation of the Constitution of the United States, to be accomplished under the stewardship of plutocratic elite. Most conservatives are in agreement about the problem. What should be done about it, however, remains an open question. Clearly, something like a classical lustration needs to be undertaken, a purification of the fields, or in this case, cleansing of the noisome bog which is current American politics. It is the party of achievement that needs to be impeached. Those who advocate or practice insurgent violence or call for the assassination of the president, who must be arrested. An activist judiciary that exceeds its mandate and seeks to frustrate executive actions that should be selectively dispensed, and a seditious media that needs to be held accountable for its violation of the SPJ Code of Ethics. The issue, however, is whether the great purge of unsavory and dissident institutions, organizations, and power brokers can succeed via discursive, procedural, and electoral means, or whether something far more dramatic is needed to prevent the end of the unique Republican experiment that is the United States of America. With luck, salvation may come from the electoral process, but it offers no guarantee to defuse the threat to the nation's survival posed by an openly totalitarian left intent on seizing the apparatus of state control. Elections can be rigged, lost, discredited, or resisted. Perhaps the president's popular rallies and Twitter fusillades will have a salutary effect on public sentiment, provided the rallies are not shut down and his Twitter account is not compromised. Articles, essays, and books by conservative defenders of the republic deploring the rules of democratic socialism may nudge a few fence-sitters to come to their senses. All such putative solutions are regrettably weak. To reduce or dismantle the almost total domination of our public, cultural, and political institutions enjoyed by the manorial left requires something more than luck, an aggressively tweeting president, or the rhetoric of lamentation. Stories such as this one bemoaning the current state of affairs have been posted and published in abundance. They are laudable, but usually unfruitful and generally stops short of endorsing more decisive measures. As I've talked about previously, it's not enough merely to say that the Democrat left is a totalitarian enterprise. If this is true, then it behooves us to offer definitive solutions, to recognize that analysis and verbal alarms are not the equivalent of Paul Revere's legendary ride and will not deter a dedicated adversary intent on subversion and treason. If necessary, the president must be prepared to invoke Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, which provides grounds for the prosecution of treasonous acts against the Republic. If such a measure is considered unpalatable, too harsh, or counterproductive, there is always the Insurrection Act, which enables him to put down lawlessness, insurrection, and rebellion. At any rate, it is an expedient worth contemplating and falls within the purview of presidential authority. The very same lunatic leftists who are violently attacking Trump supporters would be screaming bloody murder if such attacks were being waged against transgenders or socialists. But when conservatives are viciously attacked, the left-wing media reports nothing, while left-wing city leaders almost always blame the Trump supporters. As reported on Natural News, even NBA coaches like Steve Kerr now worship communist China and trash America at every opportunity. Steve Kerr is a typical left-wing idiot. He celebrates the organ harvesting, rape, torture, and human suffering of communist China, having no clue that if these radical leftists get their way, they will unleash mass executions of conservatives across America, and no one will be safe. Except the obedient, of course. Leftists are now quite literally trying to turn America into a communist, authoritarian regime. And Democrats are pushing hard to impeach President Trump with fabricated impeachment claims that are nothing but wholesale, deep state, CIA hoaxes. Time is rapidly approaching to stand up and stop this lunacy. President Trump must invoke the Insurrection Act.